Chapter 26. Freedom from Pretense. We have seen how hiding yourself can cause all kinds of social restrictions to be imposed upon you. In the same way, little acts of dishonesty can be a surprisingly easy way to throw away your freedom. It's such a small thing to shade the truth a little, but the long-run consequences can create tremendous restrictions on your life. For example, suppose that there is something you want to do, but if a given person knew about it, there might be problems. So you tell a simple lie to him to cover your tracks. Then one day, you're with him and another person, and the matter comes up in discussion. It becomes necessary to repeat or confirm the lie you told before. But the other person doesn't understand the inconsistency between what you're saying now and something you've said to him before. So you have to invent an explanation that will satisfy both of them. Now, whenever you're with either of these people, you have to remember the separate fictions involved to keep the original lie from being exposed. And it can become even more complicated as other people become involved. So, to avoid revealing your actions to someone, you can eventually pay a very complicated and expensive price. If you admit to the second person that you lied to the first, your honesty could be suspect in the future. No matter how you handle it, you pay for dishonesty. In fact, it's a very easy way to jump into a box. When you have lied about something, your actions are restricted by the need to maintain the fiction you have created. You can no longer react freely and spontaneously to new developments. You always have to keep your guard up to avoid doing anything that might reveal your previous acts. Ironically, I think dishonesty usually comes about as an attempt to avoid prices. A friend, Linda Raff, once pointed out that lying is an attempt to get something for nothing. It is the hope of being able to do something without the consequences that would naturally follow, the reactions of certain people. And yet, you usually wind up paying a higher price dealing with the problems required to continue the deception. The value of honesty is greatest to the person being honest. It may be helpful to someone else if you're honest with him, but you're helping yourself far more by your honesty. Problems of dishonesty. Here are a few of the problems you can bring upon yourself by being dishonest. 1. You have to remain on guard, using precious resources to cover up past acts. 2. You miss opportunities to be accepted for yourself because you're hiding that self. The people who would like you as you really are will never see you if you keep your real self hidden. 3. Dishonesty towards others can lead easily to dishonesty with yourself. Lying can become automatic. If you're very concerned with maintaining an image, you can remember past lies more clearly than what really happened. After a while, it may become impossible to remember what was true and what wasn't. 4. This can lead to an anxious feeling that what you've obtained by lying can't be preserved. You can feel that you don't really deserve what you have, and so you can't relax and fully enjoy it. 5. Sooner or later, someone is going to become aware of your dishonesty, possibly because he has participated in it. Because he knows you have been dishonest in the past, he can't be sure you're being honest in the present. You will have fewer alternatives available when your word can't be accepted without question. Benefits of honesty. You can avoid those problems by being honest and gain other advantages too. Here's a brief summary of the various benefits I find that honesty brings. 1. When you prove that you're willing to be honest, no matter what the short-term consequences, others will accept your word more easily. This can open up many opportunities that wouldn't exist if your listeners had to wonder about each thing you say. For example, when I was promoting my last book through radio and television appearances, I was often asked, "Why did you write this book?" I always answered, "To make money." A public relations man suggested to me that I be less honest. "Don't admit you're selfish," he said. "People don't want to hear that. You should tell them you wrote the book to help people." I asked him how many times he'd heard an author or politician say that he was only interested in helping people. He acknowledged that he had heard it many times. He also acknowledged that he never believed it when he heard it. And finally, he admitted that he doubted that other people believed it either. He hadn't understood that I was helping myself, not hurting myself by my statement. If I were willing to admit my selfish intentions, usually the first thing someone would lie about, people could more readily accept other things I said when they knew I wasn't covering up anything. Honesty allows other people to relax around you. They don't have to be alert to evaluate the truthfulness of each statement. Consequently, there's more chance for your words to make an impact. 2. Honesty allows you to relax as well. You can say what you think and mean and would like to say, without having to check first to be sure your statements won't contradict a previous remark. 3. As you reveal yourself honestly, you often find that you didn't really know what others wanted to hear. You only assumed you knew. When you tell the truth, you may be surprised to discover that it projects a more attractive image of yourself than one you might have fabricated. I have often found that others would reveal their feelings only after I had revealed mine frankly. When they saw that someone was willing to admit the truth about himself, they felt free to follow suit. 4. When you have been honest with everyone you're involved with, you will know you have earned whatever you have, and you will feel much freer to relax and enjoy it. You won't have to fear that the truth might someday be revealed and destroy what you've achieved. 5. You will be free to share your innermost secrets with others. When you decide that you don't have to fear the judgment of others, you won't be afraid to confide in them. When you can verbalize your emotions and desires honestly, you will probably understand them better, and you will be able to satisfy them more easily. Plenty of encouragement. Honesty has many advantages, but somehow dishonesty continues to get a good press and plenty of encouragement. Both fiction and real life are filled with examples of smart and even noble people telling lies. I imagine you have seen in movies, books, and newspapers how people lie to get what they want, how they lie to avoid hurting someone's feelings, how they disguise their own desires in a show of self-sacrifice, how politicians and diplomats lie, supposedly in the service of their countries, how lovers lie to arrange secret meetings, and how little people lie to get even with big business. Perhaps the most common encouragement to lying is the idea that you're doing someone a favor when you lie to them. But I think that idea is dishonest in itself. When a person lies to protect someone's feelings, he is most likely doing it to keep the person from disliking him. A phony compliment usually isn't meant to make an individual feel better about himself. It's meant to make him feel better about the person giving the compliment. It doesn't work though. He probably knows the truth already. If you lie to a person about what he already knows, he will probably respect you less, not more. And you also hurt your credibility with anyone else who knows about it. Suppose that you and I are having lunch with Charlie, who's known for his large nose. When Charlie asks me, "Do you think my nose is large?" I could answer, "Of course not, Charlie." Later, you might ask me if I really meant my remark. Suppose I answer, "No, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings." That may seem noble, but the next time I say something nice to you, you will have no way of knowing whether I meant it or was just trying to make you feel good. My so-called kindness has hurt my relationship with you. What is the alternative to lying? Do I have to be brutal and hurt Charlie in order to be truthful? No. Too often, the brutal truth is only a partial truth. When it seems that honesty has caused problems, the trouble is often too little truth rather than too much. When Charlie asks me if his nose is too large, I could say, "It sure is." Would that be the truth? Only part of it. It would be more completely honest to say, "You have a large nose, but it doesn't make any difference to me." Another example of too little truth is the person who angrily says, "I hate you," and then excuses his venom by saying, "Well, you want me to be honest, don't you?" But is he being honest? Usually, such an individual doesn't really hate the person, or he wouldn't be in contact with him to begin with. It might be more accurate to say, "There are many things I like about you, but I dislike very much what you've just done." "There are many things I like about you, but I really dislike what you've just done." Or, "I am just very angry right now." That recognizes the broader context in which the issue at hand is only one small part. It makes quite a difference. Honesty makes it much easier to deal with whatever has caused the problem. So, if you sometimes fear saying the truth, check first to see if perhaps the problem is one of too little truth rather than too much. And recognize that you're sacrificing your own reputation and reducing your alternatives when you lie as a supposed favor to someone else. Any problem he has in facing the truth is his problem. It isn't your duty to protect him from himself. 100%. An important principle underlies the examples we've seen in this chapter. An individual can be sure of your honesty only if you're honest with everyone. How can he be sure you're not lying to protect his feelings if you've lied to protect someone else's feelings? If you have said you would lie only if it was absolutely necessary, how can he be sure you don't consider this situation an absolute necessity? If you say you would never lie to your close friends, how can he be sure he hasn't done something to be demoted from your close friendship? If you want to prove your honesty to someone, you can do it only by being honest with everyone. He can relax and accept what you say only if you have demonstrated that you'll be honest, even when it's uncomfortable for you to do so. I once had a lady friend who played the typical games with the phone company, placing collect or person-to-person calls that were never completed, just to get a prearranged message through. Obviously, the phone company didn't create its facilities to enable people to send free messages. To use those facilities fraudulently is just as dishonest as lying to someone's face. My friend justified her tactic by saying, But that doesn't mean I would lie to you, and I resent the inference that I would. You're far more important to me than the phone company. But that's the point. If she had lied to the phone company to save 85 cents, why wouldn't she lie to me if she thought it would save our relationship? Especially since she says I'm more important to her than the phone company. You can prove your honesty to any one person only by being honest to everyone. There's a greater difference between being 99% honest and 100% honest than there is being 70% and 90%. The first exception to your honesty destroys one of its most important benefits: the absolute trust of others. Testing yourself. Most people probably think of themselves as being basically honest, even though they tell a few white lies here and there. In fact, it can be so habitual that it doesn't even register with the person as being dishonest. The identity trap can be compelling. One can be so anxious to put his best foot forward that he doesn't even notice that it isn't his own foot. I find it valuable to test my honesty periodically. To do so, I pick a period of 30 minutes or so when I'm talking on the telephone or in person with others. I observe closely everything I say. Did I speak the absolute truth as I know it? Or did I say what I felt I ought to say in the circumstances? Through this test, I can discover whether I've lied without being aware of it. If you use this test and realize you're lying sometimes, you can use a variation of the same test to get in the habit of telling the truth at all times. Take an hour when you'll be talking with someone. Instead of checking your statements after you say them, think twice about them before speaking. Stop your first impulse to speak and check what you were about to say. Is it the truth? If it isn't, determine what is and say that. After an hour, you might be exhausted from the concentration, so don't overdo it at first. An hour each day might be enough to start with. After a few days of this, it becomes more automatic and requires less effort to keep up. So, you can increase the amount of time you will devote to the exercise. Eventually, you should discover that your first impulses to speak are truthful. At that point, the monitoring can be dropped. Honesty will have become natural. The way I have described the exercise might make it seem as routine as doing an hour of calisthenics each day, but there's a lot more to it. During the exercise time, you might face some decisive moments. Suppose you have been exaggerating your affection for your wife, and on the first day you try this, she asks you if you love her. On the third day, you might be divorced. You might need to answer a question in a way that contradicts an important lie you have been protecting for a long time. If you're not prepared to accept the consequences of that, there's no point in undertaking the attempt. As I mentioned in the box trap chapter, it's foolish to start using a new technique before you're fully prepared to handle the consequences. You have to be convinced the benefits are worth the discomfort that will accompany the adjustment period. As with anything else, you can approach absolute honesty on a gradual basis. But it would help to begin thinking of ways to handle the major adjustments that might be required when you acknowledge major dishonesties of the past. I don't think it's worth doing unless you're prepared to go all the way with it eventually. If you do decide that honesty will be your policy, the rewards should far outweigh the problems. In fact, you will probably discover benefits far beyond anything I might suggest. You might develop valuable new relationships, even out of new ones. You may find that more people will respond favorably to you because your honesty is a refreshing difference. As you deal with others, you will probably feel a great sense of freedom when all need for pretense evaporates. You will be able to forget about the contradictions and complications you had to keep track of before. Let me warn you, however, that the only way to demonstrate your honesty is by simply responding honestly to everything. The most ineffective way of demonstrating your honesty is by saying, "I'm being honest with you." What you are. When you start reaping the benefits of honesty, all temptation to be dishonest may fade. You will want to reveal yourself to others as you are, because you will know that's the way to attract the kind of people who have the most to offer you. The real you has a lot more to offer the world than the lost in the crowd facade that so many people try to assume. Who wants one more person whose identity is just like everyone else? I have found that my most useful assets are many of the things I used to try to hide. My selfishness, my laziness, the ease with which I cry when I hear good music or see good drama. Those things have helped me find like-minded people who appreciate the same things. And those are the people I have always wanted to be with, not the ones for whom I'd have to suppress myself. I have found that suppressing embarrassing things about myself costs me far too much freedom to be worth it. So, if I feared that a given person might discover something I had been trying to hide, I went to him and told it to him myself. The experience never failed to give me a wonderful sense of freedom. I no longer had to worry about it. The price had been paid once and for all, and I didn't have to think about it again. In the same way, if there is something about myself that makes me self-conscious, I examine it closely. I invariably discover that it's either nothing to be self-conscious about, or some minor trait that can be changed easily without changing what I am. Integrity. Honesty is displaying yourself to others as you really are. But of course, you can't be truthful about something you don't know. And that's why it's so important to examine yourself, understand yourself, and accept yourself. Only when you know who you are can you honestly represent yourself to others. The individual who doesn't know himself can't speak with authority about himself. He can't make promises because he doesn't know himself well enough to foresee his future emotions and actions. He can't express authoritative opinions because he doesn't really know what he believes. He uses the word I dishonestly. He begins statements with "I think," but he's only repeating what he's heard. He says "I will," but he doesn't really know what he's going to do. The word I is one of the most important words in the English language. It refers to a unique individual entity, different from all others in the world. When you use the word, you should be sure you're really expressing the unique individual entity that is you, not simply repeating something that sounded good to you. To be honest, you must know yourself well, and that involves integrity, which is honesty's twin asset. Integrity is knowing yourself well enough to be able to mean what you say. The person with integrity can use the word I with authority. He knows what he thinks, for he's thought it out for himself. An uncluttered life. The effort to prevent discovery of facts about yourself can be costly and draining, but it's perhaps the easiest self-destructive habit one can practice. I've had to work with it, and work with it again. It is so important to me that I don't like to go for very long without rechecking myself to be sure I haven't unthinkingly relapsed into dishonesty. And unfortunately, sometimes my rechecking reveals that I have fallen back. But my efforts to correct it have been worth the trouble many times over. Discovering myself and displaying that self has brought me countless benefits, valuable friends, a clean, uncluttered life, and a wide expanse of freedom that I didn't even know existed until I tried being totally honest. As I have said before, there may be more things depriving you of freedom than the particular restrictions that prompted you to pick up this book. Freedom can be lost through many traps, boxes, and temptations, and what seems to be harmless dishonesty can turn out to be one of the greatest restrictions of all. Dishonesty is a form of the identity trap. When you lie to someone, you're falling for the temptation to think that you will be more attractive and get more of what you want if you appear to be something different from what you are. Learn to trust your own nature, your own identity. Accept it, live with it, reveal it. Don't suppress it. Don't attempt to shade it with little lies and half-truths. When you do, you miss so much of life and the happiness that can be yours. By being only what you are, you can awaken each morning to a new day that's an opportunity to seek whatever you want, with no previous deceptions to get in your way.